For those of you who don't know, Troy is an amazing actor behind the voices of characters like Booker in BioShock Infinite, Higgs in Death Stranding, and my personal favorite, Joel from The Last of Us. I lost power just before we were scheduled to start, so I had to safely go to a different location to record this, but we got it done, and I am so happy to present my conversation with Troy Baker. First off, congrats to you and the team on all of those wins at the Game Awards. That was just constant racking up between the game itself, Laura Bailey. It was great.
Oh my God. I saw how hard that team worked on part one and how they stretched every bit of fidelity and resources that were available to them at the time. And then all of a sudden, now we're going to do a new game on a new platform and spend that entire dev cycle finding out how much they could squeeze out of that engine and those fidelities and that resource. And it's hard enough to ship a game. It's ones and zeros moving through space magically to end up on a disc or a download. And to be able to say right at the end when it's so critical and everything is just like, there's not a single game that ever gets shipped where they're like, well, we came together like 3 months ago. We probably could have shipped like, at least 2 weeks ago. Everything is like throwing it as it's going out the door. And to be at that point and go, the entire world is shutting down. I've never seen a studio have to ship a game under more daunting circumstances. And awards and accolades and accomplishments like that, those are great totems, especially in the recognitions from your industry. It's validating in a sense, but that I know I don't seek that, and I know neither does Naughty Dog or anybody else, but it feels damn good to sit and watch as those awards got counted out and everybody that had worked so hard for their dedication, their diligence, and their talent and their skill to be recognized industry-wide. Yeah, that was a great night. There's a long commentary on your first question. I don't even know if it was your first question, but
no, that was great.
Else, I'm still vamp. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, especially where the game itself kind of went through so many odd cycles to be following where like such a massive leak happened so early on, and that immediately just painted people's opinions of the game before they even played it. So to kind of come out this other end and, have the fan base that does really appreciate what Naughty Dog and the team was going for, it just must feel like really validating after months of stress from that.
Any validation, and it's not even validation, I'd say verification feels like a better word. The verification came from the anecdotal evidence of people as they played the game, and not just like the day after it was released, but I'm talking like a week later. Those people that actually spent time playing it. People that played it in 2 days, I don't understand. I mean, it's 40 hours of gameplay, minimum.
It absorbed my life for like an entire week.
I could only play it for about 2 to 3 hours a night, and then that was about it for me. It's not like nobody wants to have a filet mignon eating contest, True. It's like take your time. So I kind of took my time with it, and after I started seeing all these people coming and going, it's a wonderfully crafted story. It's a masterfully told experience, and just people that could accept. And the beautiful thing about creating something like this is art is only art when it becomes interpreted. Before then, it's just a hunk of marble or some paint on a paper. But once people look at it and go, this is what it means to me, and this is what I take from it, and I picked up something that seems slightly random or not even intentional, or there's a whole other layer of meaning extrapolated by the viewer, the person that's experiencing that takes it beyond what the artist originally intended. That to me is validation or verification that everything we worked on was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just something I noticed when playing it. Like I played it on stream, and even just compared to the people, like how I was playing it, the people watching, like there were so many different interpretations of what different things meant and what people enjoyed, what they didn't like so much, what they came around to liking. And I just think that that's really a testament to the storytelling there, because it's months later. Like this came out in June, and it's still a game that I think about that gets me emotional when I think about playing it. And that's kind of what I really appreciate about the story itself. It's you guys set out for a specific story in mind, and you told it the way it needed to be told, and didn't really worry about checking off like fan service thing. So like so many people do this. They're like, oh, this is what the fans want, so we're going to check it all off. It's you set out with a story and you told it in the best and most emotional way possible.
Thank you. And the beauty of it is, or the real challenge is this, is game design is so hard. And I was even talking about this, do a podcast with Alana Pearson, Austin Wintory, and Mike Bithell. And Mike Bithell goes, you want to involve the player as much as you can without hand-holding them, but also not frustrating the player so much. They're like, I didn't know you wanted me to go through the door. There's nothing that indicated that you wanted me to go through the door. But then we get frustrated as a player when we go, I just said, go through the door. It's like, let me figure it out. So like there's this really, really narrow margin of design. And to be able to craft a game that goes, everything that we're going to do that's going to be fan service or player facing, where it's like we're going to make sure that the player understands that this is the task that is at hand and that we communicate these mechanics as clearly and cogently as possible so that the frustration is coming from the narrative tension versus a deficiency in design. But then inversely, everything that the narrative is doing is just beating your heart up and making you feel in conflict with characters and taking relationships, and the ground was constantly shifting underneath your feet, underneath my feet as I played. And so to be able to, in one sense, service the player and in the other go against the player to me is an amazing feat. So anyone that's just like, oh, it was a terrible game, you're like, no, it wasn't. You may not like it, and it may not be your cup of tea, but you can't say that it wasn't masterfully or craftily done. If for no other reason, the studio has a pedigree of being able to crank out Game of the Year winners, not even contenders, winners, for going back decades. So to be able to say that all of a sudden on this one, they whiffed it.
There's still very vocal people out there that just talk about how garbage the game is, even though they never actually gave it the chance. And a lot of people all cheated themselves out of these amazing flashback scenes that told this deeper story of, you know, Joel and Ellie's relationship since the first game and the problems they had and how much Joel grew as a person and just all of these beautiful, amazing moments that wind in to the ending. Like when I realized that the teaser trailer that played back in 2018, that's not until the very end of the game. Like that threw me off because I assumed that was going to be at the beginning of the game. And it's just little things like that, how the story is crafted, that I feel I wish those people would give it a chance. And they might not like it. They might just never be in a place where they allow themselves to like it. But I think the story did exactly what it needed to do.
It's interesting to say it cheated them out of something. I'm reminded of a story. The dad, I tell this story a lot. There's a dad in Indiana that came up to me and said that he's playing part one, and he has a daughter. And he said, I get to the intro, I finished the prologue, and I put the game down, and I went into my daughter's room, and I picked her up, and I held her, and I cried. And he goes, I stopped playing the game. I was like, I understand. He goes, no, you don't. I was like, okay. And he said for 6 months, he walked past his PlayStation and looked as both the console and the game collected dust. And finally, he decided one day to pick it up and finish the story. And he said, I got to the giraffe moment. And he said, I put the controller down again. And he said, I guess it dawned on me that sometimes we have to get through the hard stuff to find our giraffe moment. And I said, that's the most profound perspective on this game I've ever heard. And I don't think that anybody cheated themselves out of a moment. They simply need to push through the hard stuff to find their new version of the giraffe moment, because they're there. You're right. They won't ever see the capsule moment. They won't ever see Future Days. They won't ever see the porch scene. They won't ever see so much. Not even just, I'm going through the moments with Joel, but just the whole story.
The whole thing.
And there's even a specific moment where Joel is up against the wall. He just looks down. He's just like, God damn it. This is what happens when you care. For 25 years, I did what I could to never let my heart be unguarded, to always be that ruthless survivor and do whatever it takes to accomplish my goals. And if I hurt people, I hurt people. And the second that I said, you know what, maybe I can be a different person, this is what happens. And it's so reflective of our culture right now. The second, I remember the Beastie Boys did a documentary, and they were talking about how they were now talking about the Me Too movement. And someone on a press line said, this is coming from the people that use derisive language towards women, and how can they possibly say anything about feminism or women's equality or gender equality? And he goes, I would much rather be a hypocrite than to be a person that never changes. And I feel the same way, man. It's like, I would much rather someone look at me and go, you used to say this. And I'm like, I'm glad that I don't. Joel would never be that person. Man, I'm glad that he's a hypocrite. I'm glad that he decided to care about a girl. I'm glad that he decided to settle down. I'm glad that he decided to start making guitars. I'm glad that he decided to build a house for himself. I'm glad that Joel is not the person that he was in part one.
I definitely agree with that, because everybody wants to talk about how, sad it might be where Ellie is at the end, but I think she kept a piece of her humanity and is going off to continue to do so. But if Joel stayed the same way that everybody expected in the first game, he would be that he'd be bitter, he'd be angry, he wouldn't have that relationship with Ellie, he wouldn't have all those happy moments. And I'm like you. I would rather that he be a hypocrite in that situation and have let his guard down to trust this girl that probably reminded him of Ellie, and have it kind of come back on him than to never let people in at all. Ugh, it's so emotional talking about this game. Honestly, I'm sure it's worse for you. Like, this is like a character that you helped build from creation to where it ended up. So I'm sure what was the real emotion, or how did it feel when you found out the direction that the story was going to go in for Joel? Was there kind of like a pushback at first, or did you kind of just understand what the story was going to be? And
yeah, I think there was pushback for me, not from a creative disagreement, but more of a fear that I didn't want it to be real. I didn't want to say goodbye. Neil and I have only gotten in 2 fights. And one of those was the first time that I read the script, and I was like, we can't do this. We can't do this. And I immediately precluded myself from, like, when at the very beginning I talked about, I was like, all I want to be I want to be a member of that team. I want to be a partner with that studio. And whenever I sat down and it was like, or not even sat down, stood up, and I was like, we can't do this, and that immediately precludes partnership. I'm now on the opposite side of a table as opposed to being on the same side of the table going, walk me through why this? Why is this the way we got to do this? He jokes and he says, he goes, nobody cares about Joel more than me, except maybe Troy.
Yeah.
And it's always out of care and love. And I didn't even consider that for a moment. I allowed my emotions to take the better of me, and fear, honestly, to get the better of me and say, I disagree with this. And instead of, any director could have, well, this is what we're doing. Make peace with it. Saddle up, Buttercup. This is what we're doing. Instead, he goes, okay, walk me through why. Let's talk about it. And I'm so glad that we did, because it is, we didn't design that scene to be purposefully provocative. It's not about getting what you deserve. It's arbitrary. It's random. It's meaningless. It's senseless. And the point is not to try to make sense of it. The point is to just accept it. Why do bad things happen to good people? Because they do. Because we're on a ball of rock that's spinning around that ball of gas. And the beauty is that it continues to do that regardless of our situation. And that to me is infinitely more comforting than that there's some arbitrary or even worse, intentional design behind it. The fact that it's going to be okay because this has happened, and guess what? This ball of rock keeps spinning around that ball of gas.
I
A little Buddhism for you there.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that, and that's kind of I made a video after I finished playing the game on stream, and that was kind of like one of my takeaways. It's like people are looking to try to paint this with like a good and evil type brush, and it's this is just a story about people surviving and actions having consequences, and people like literally destroying themselves to get something they think is going to make them better in some way. But, getting revenge isn't going to help anything. Destroying yourself to make something happen isn't what Joel would want for Ellie. So I do think it's kind of that randomness is a lot more beautiful than thinking, oh, well, Joel didn't deserve to go out that way, because that's just not the story that you guys are telling.
If you want to go down that route, he also doesn't deserve the love of a 14-year-old girl. He also doesn't deserve to be in Jackson. He also doesn't deserve to have anything. He doesn't deserve joy. And again, it's so reflective of our cultures. Like, that person doesn't deserve my grace. That person doesn't deserve my forgiveness. That person doesn't deserve we just got to block them, ban them, and cancel them. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Because you could be under that blade very quickly too. And that's what I don't want to, man, it's super hard. There's a great, I can't remember who did it, but it was this beautiful little short animated piece that someone did called The Egg. And the notion is not that there have been billions of souls, but rather there's just been one. And this soul continues to be just like, reborn and move around from different people. And so that soul is everyone. And so the person who's realizing that they are this soul, it's like, so I'm Abraham Lincoln? And he goes, and you're John Wilkes Booth. We are this duality in nature. We are the best versions of ourselves, and we're the worst version of ourselves. And we always want to make sure that people see the best versions of ourselves, and we are terrified of someone finding the worst version of ourselves. And Joel is no different. I want people to believe that I am good. But the truth is that I'm terrible, that I've done horrible things, and I'm not worthy of love. So I reject it. And then the second that it comes into my life, and it's for a fleeting moment, because I was trying to do a good thing, and it cost me everything, I will do anything to get that love back. And it is still a story of redemption. Like, Joel's redemption carries through The Last of Us Part 2. Most people say it's just Part 1. And I was like, oh no, the story, Part 1 is Joel's fall. Continually. And Part 2 is his redemption that dances beautifully with with Ellie's story of revenge. And really, it's about obsession. Joel becomes obsessed with Ellie in the most beautiful way. And Ellie becomes obsessed with X for you. You could say Abby, you could say Joel, you could say, I don't know. Yeah, that's the beauty of this story.
Because it is like, it's definitely an obsession that she goes down, and Ashley just knocked it out of the park with the whole game. Everybody really did, which I guess kind of brings into one of the other questions I had, just kind of about, people always talk about the emotional process of getting into different roles, but voice actors so often get left behind in that area, especially when they're in video games. But The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 are like prime examples of how like emotionally gripping and deep these stories can actually go. But what do you find is kind of like a unique challenge that goes into voice acting, especially for video games, and I guess especially with like the mocap stuff?
Well, so often those two are treated as separate things. It's like I don't look at myself as a voice actor. And in the same way that any other actor wouldn't go, oh, I'm a film actor. It's like, so you've never done TV? It's like, oh, no, I'm on a show right now. It's like, well, why did you not qualify? I have a job to do, and depending upon the day and depending upon the job, I am handed specific tools in order to accomplish that job. And sometimes I have to do that entire job by just a microphone. Sometimes I'm put on a stage, and sometimes a camera is present, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just an audience. It's like the job stays the same. The tools are the only thing that change. Mm-hmm. And so Naughty Dog looks at it, and several other companies do the same way. Sucker Punch did the same thing. Insomniac did the same thing. There's people that go, hey, in order to accomplish the kind of storytelling that we want to do, we need to add more tools to it. So that means we're going to do performance capture, which means we're going to bring in actors, because what's really important is that these performances feel not necessarily cinematic, because that's just an overused term, but we do it in such a way that makes it feel like, man, that is real. The fidelity, not just of the pores on the face and all the different pixels and everything, but just the fidelity of the realism of these performances and the relationships shine through as best as possible. And so what we're going to do is we found that this tool right now, performance capture, where we put the actors all together on a stage and we build these rudimentary sets and we put them in these ridiculous suits that track all of their movement, and we put a camera on their face that tracks all the movements of their face, and we translate all of that data and we apply it to the character model and the environments that we have built in our engine, is a way for us to be able to do that. So for me, the second that I start thinking about that, and I did this on Uncharted, there were so many times I was really starting to get into directing, and so I was starting under a camera language, and so I would come to Neil and I would say, hey, so where's your camera? He goes, he looks at me, he's like, I need you to not worry about camera. I need you to worry about what Sam is thinking, what Sam wants in this scene. It's like, oh man, I'm jumping between all these different roles. So when you think about these scenes and actually putting them onto stage and getting them working in an engine, it's for most actors who show up on a set, you drive on to the back lot of Warner Brothers, or you drive on to Universal or to Sony or whatever, and you go through this parking lot and there's all these like little dome buildings and it's a stage, and then you drive through and there's yours, and you go and you find yours, and you're transported once you go into this world. It's like all of a sudden now you're in this lush jungle, and like there's going to be a dinosaur that's animatronic, but it's really something to interact with that's happening here. And they go, okay, we need to change out of your normal clothes, and we're going to put this costume on you. And you're like, yeah. And we're going to put a scar right here. And you're like, yeah, now I've got this big machete and I've got this camouflage all over me. And I'm like, I'm a badass dinosaur hunter, whatever, in Dinosaur Hunter 4, whatever it is. And all of those things, and the camera's there, and they're making sure that all of these things that help inform your character are absent on a mocap stage. And everyone is wearing these Tron suits, and you're in a Kubrickian white room that is just filled with all these red cameras, that are tracking motions, and people can be anywhere on that set because they're not wearing the same stupid suit you are. So the cameras don't see them. And you've got an Apple box that is your Jeep, and a ball on a stick that's going to be the dinosaur, and your machete is actually a PVC pipe. So it's all of these things that are like actually taking you out of it. And so what it forces you to do, or allows you to do, is go, what do I quintessentially know about this character, this world, and this story? And most importantly, what is at stake in this scene? Why are we shooting this scene with these characters right now? Because I can't depend on all of these other things to get me in the mode. They'll actually work against you. And so it's a very reduced, very focused way of laying out those tools and getting the job done.
And it's so impressive. Like it really is. And it always bothers me when, I was really excited to get a chance to talk to you today just because I think you are so amazing at what you do. But like not everybody necessarily understands that because they're like, oh, I've played video games. Like characters just say like a couple words here and there. It's like, no, like you don't understand. Like this is like deep levels of emotion that people have to get in while wearing these like crazy suits while people are, trying to say, okay, yeah, over there's a bunch of people walking around with guns and you got to do this over here. It's really amazing.
You know what's funny is for the longest time, I used to get really bent out of shape. And I was like, you don't, saying exactly what you, and I appreciate you saying all those things. But
Yeah.
I used to be the one going, you don't understand how hard it is. And this is what I have to do. And this is why it's so important versus how'd you feel playing the game? My God, dude, it hit me on such a guttural level.
Yeah.
Then does it really matter? Does it really matter that what I had to go through or what the team had to go through to get that done? Doesn't matter. What if it took a flip of a switch? If there's something that, because by all rights then, what if there's something that I really didn't try that hard in? What if it was just something that I just did, but it still impacted you the same way? It's like, well, what it really means is that the scene is impactful, not because of what I did, but it's how it all came together. Because there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure that I did or happens on multiple games where it's like, what if I gave the best performance of my life? And I mean, they have to create a new award to give me, because like, almost like Bill and Ted's, like their music changed society and culture and the world, and it brought peace. And what if I did something that was that great? But for some reason, if you're playing it on a base PS4, there's a huge glitch. Does it change my performance?
It changes the experience of the person playing it, but no, it doesn't change
For
what you did. Yeah.
But by the same token, the awards that are given don't retroactively. Someone says, like, I can't believe that The Last of Us won Game of the Year. It's like, it already was. They just gave them an award for it.
I agree.
And the beauty of Game of the Year is inherently according to whom. Because I'm just not getting, IGN just did their awards. They're different. Does that take away the title from anybody else? No, it's just an industry or a group of people randomly. And I've been on awards panels. I've been on that dais where it's like, we got to choose. And sometimes it's just like, okay, guys, on the Rochambeau, who's going to win this thing? Because we got to get out of this room. And it's the reason why I love awards is because it affords people potentially the ability to keep making more games. And that's always good for the industry. But it doesn't retroactively make my performance better or worse if I win or don't win. And it's not about how good of a job I did. It's about how the game came together. And like right now, Cyberpunk is just getting railed right now. And I feel so bad for that team. Not in the game, by the way. I feel so bad for that team because here's one of the most, probably the most highly, I think it even won the award for most anticipated game. Most highly anticipated game. Keanu Reeves. You can't get any better of a star. And then that's the first time ever that a publisher pulls it from their platform because of glitches. I would not want to be that team right now, but I just want to grab every one of them and hug them and go,
yeah, exactly.
Look. People go, well, they shouldn't have done it. It's like, you want to talk about what should and shouldn't be done in this industry. Come on. At the end of the day, though, I don't think that there's a single person that worked at CD Projekt Red that just wasn't like, we're just trying to make a good game. We're just trying to keep these people employed. We're just trying to make an experience. We're just trying to make a game that we want to play. I'm no different. So my empathies go to everyone at CDPR because it's just what a shit end of the stick to be given.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I agree. I do just want to give them all a hug because they've been working under just crazy conditions, trying to just get this out on some kind of like arbitrary timeline, and it's completely out of their hands. Like nobody working on the game has the ability to be like, we're not putting it out. That's not up to
Right.
them. So,
and that's a really good point. It's like, well, why don't you push? It's like, maybe they didn't have the ability to. They're not self-publishing that game. You know, so I'm sure somebody, I can't remember what movie it is like, if you go high enough, there's always one person. There's always a man that's like responsible for this. So I'm sure that you could probably tie it down to, it's like, it was Dennis or whoever. And Dennis could be dragged and quartered in front of all of us and saying, how dare you? But I mean, that game did push a lot, many times, I think, that we know of. It's the same thing as quarantine right now. It's like, I shouldn't have to stay inside. It's like, nobody wants quarantine. Nobody in the UK right now, Italy just went into quarantine. Nobody wants that to happen. The punishment can't be worse than the cure. Well, I think of the two, we get to go inside and have Netflix and video games and social media and Zoom. And it sucks to not be able to go wherever you want to go. But it's a hell of a lot better than lying in a bed on a ventilator or putting someone 6 feet under. So go inside for a second and enjoy the amazing technology that we have for a couple of days or weeks if we have to. Boy, we've gone all over the map, haven't we?
We have. So I guess just to switch things just before to end off this part of the interview, do you want to tell me a little bit about Relator and how that's been going?
Yeah. I started doing stuff on the internet because everybody, why not? And I love creating content. It's fun. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to build something that was predicated on content. Because what I'm really more interested in is I'm always interested in the conversation and I'm always interested in community. It's what can I do to help people? Like, look, when I got started, I could point to the people, and it was pretty much on one hand that gave me a shot, that gave me a break. And all I needed was somebody to believe in me and then someone to give me a chance to make mistakes. And it's fun to do unboxing videos and to do, react videos and create content and podcasts and gameplays and all that kind of stuff. It's fun to do. But if I set up something and I'm predicated upon doing that, I've talked to too many YouTubers, buddies of mine. Jacksepticeye was like, dude, I was doing 2 videos a day for 4 years and I got burnt out. And we constantly see these streamers that are just like, I'm just trying to crank out content. I need to take a break from making content because I'm just so burned out. I was like, okay, well, I want to see if I can't work around that. I don't want to do that. So what can I do? It's like, I want to build community. I want to give people a shot to make whatever it is that they want to make. And so I've spent the last 6 months failing wonderfully, beautifully, and going, well, what about this? What about this? What if we did this? And starting to instill what this platform is all about. And at the end of the day, it's 3 things: entertainment, education, and community. And everything we do has those 3 things. I want it to be fun. I want it to be, interesting or inspiring to watch. I want you to learn something. I want it to be educational, but it has to involve community. And I realized that if I create content to try to create community, I will inherently curate a community of consumers. All they want to do is just eat the content. But instead, if I create community and then go, well, what do you guys want to do? Then that community will go out and make content. And we've started, like, every Saturday we watch a movie. This last Saturday was our last movie of the year, and we watched the best Christmas movie ever, Die Hard.
Of course.
Some people had never seen it before, and that's how we do this movie thing. It's like, what have you never seen? Or it's like, of course, in like Godfather, when it does this, someone goes, I've never seen that movie. It's like, holy crap, we get to take Amelia Thompson to go see Godfather for the first time. And we all get to stream it and watch it together. And then on Sundays, we do this thing called Prompt, which was just randomly born, where it's like, what if we choose a theme, a specific theme? Like this last Sunday, Armine Davis she hosted the Prompt, and the theme was patterns. So she said, what patterns in your life do you have taken hold on you for either good or bad? And then what we do is, if you're watching on YouTube, we tell people is like, throughout the week, think about it and find a creative way to express that theme, whatever that means to you. You could do anything. You could sing, dance, write a story, a poem, do macaroni art. I don't care. Just find a creative way to express that theme. And then people that are in our, what we call our Rat Pack, which is part of our Patreon, they come together on a private Zoom call and they have 30 minutes to work together in pocketed groups, and they come together and share how they creatively express that theme. And it's been this really cool thing over the last several months of like people realizing you're like, I'm talented. I didn't know that I had this ability. It's like, yeah, dude, you're a poet, you're a singer, you're an artist, you're a sculptor. You have all these, and no one, somebody either told them that they weren't talented or told them, and all I had to do was just introduce someone to the notion that was introduced to me. I'm not an actor. I'm not a musician. I'm a storyteller. And all I want to do is tell stories. And if that means that I do it in video games, or if I do it in music, or if I do it on podcasts, or if I do it on YouTube, or do it on Twitch, that's me telling my story. And you're a storyteller. So what story do you want to tell? And how can I help you tell that story? That's Relator.
I love that. That's awesome. There's so many different ways to approach kind of, I know you just said you're not a content creator. That's not what you're out to do, but there's just so many ways to like approach that kind of platform. And I think that's a really cool way to get people in your community involved and help them kind of flesh out their own passions. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. It's been really, really fun. Very, very rewarding. And we're just getting started. Like I said, the last 6 months have been like, how do we not do this? And find out all of the problems. And now I feel like I've got a really good idea. I've got some great people that are kind of like the key pinnacle parts of this community. And we're grabbing 2021 by the horns. And it's just, we're going to do our best to hang on and see where this ride takes us.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end off. Thank you so much for being here, Troy, and making the time. That was a fantastic discussion, and I'm so happy I got the chance to be here with you.
It's my pleasure as well.